What's up guys, welcome back to On the Brick with another custom LEGO review. Today I have for you the Unstable Terrain Artillery Transport, or the UT-AT. This is a vehicle that literally only has 10 seconds of screen time in canon, as its lone appearance was at the beginning of the Order 66 sequence in episode 3, when Ki-Adi-Mundi and the Galactic Marines are storming the bridge on Megiddo. Still, ever since I learned that this was a vehicle, I wanted there to be a LEGO set of it, and now many years later I finally have one. This set was designed by a user called BrickWizard59, and the instructions are sold by AV Figures. This set is intended to be a playset, so it's a little smaller, measuring only 13 inches long if you measure the ship, 15 with the guns. It's just over 6.5 inches wide, and is 5 inches tall. And this UT-AT contains about 850 pieces, and I'll explain why I didn't give an exact number. First impressions though, this thing has a really decent size to it, and the final look is really good. I'm decently pleased with most of the final result. Now, as we turn it around, you can see that this is a pretty simple build, and if you noticed any mismatched colors, especially in the back, that's only because I was using mainly pieces that I had from the ATTE set. But overall, BrickWizard59 did a really good job at capturing this ship in a play scale set. Though this set isn't as accurate as I might have liked, again, they were going for more a playset than for accuracy, and I think that's fine. And since it is a playset, there are some features. There's not much, but you can move the artillery cannon on the top, both side to side, and you can also move it up and down. The 4 smaller guns behind that can also be rotated freely, but you cannot move the guns on the sides of the ship as they are connected directly to the hull. One other thing you can do is open up the cockpit, and the instructions do come with a seat that's supposed to fit in there, but I just chose not to build that as I wouldn't really be using it. Also, one thing I want to point out here is because I used pieces from my old ATTE set to make the cockpit, it is slightly different than what you will get. In fact, it's only during editing literally right now that I realized the front of my cockpit has fallen off and I don't know where it went. This here is how it's supposed to look like. I definitely did build that part, but I really don't know what happened to it. Taking a look at the underside of the ship, you can see how simply it's laid out, and that's because there are no technical aspects to this build, which honestly surprised me when I was building it. However, you can open up the back to get access to the inside, and you can move the side panels, but it doesn't really do anything. One thing it does do is give me better access at showing you what the inner structure looks like. Because I only intend for this to be a display piece, I didn't really care for the colors or exact pieces to be used on the inside. All the mismatched pieces you see here get covered up anyway. And I'll talk about this as we take a look at the inside in a short bit, but there were some odd piece choices that were intended to be used here, and I can't say I'm really sure why. Once you slide the front panel on, you can't move it. It's stuck in place by the cockpit, and that's probably for the best, as you see that mine came disconnected a little bit, but it's an easy fix. Like I said, there is an interior, and what you want to do is not mess around for 10 seconds like I did. Instead, what you want to do is lower the back hatch and pop the top off. It comes off in one smooth piece, giving you access to the entire interior, which for me is rather empty, and this is where the discrepancy in pieces comes in. Because again, since this was going to be a display piece for me, I didn't really bother fleshing out the interior, but I also didn't really like what was there anyway, as it was really simple. In fact, the only thing I don't have are the extra chairs that are supposed to be in there, but that's really it. And this is also when those really weird piece choices come in, because most of this is supposed to be smooth and gray, but some of the pieces are modified bricks that just make it more expensive to get. And I also want to point out these 2 slope pieces here that are mirrored on the other side, and want you to remember them as I talk about the instructions later on. But really quick, putting this thing back together is super easy. The top pops right on with minimal problems, and you can just fold the panels back into place. The completed set is pretty light, so carrying it isn't a problem, and it's surprisingly sturdy, so you can pick this thing up, move it around, it's not really going to fall apart on you. In fact, the only part I had any problem with, apparently outside of the front of the cockpit, which is still missing, are the very tips of the side panels here, where they're only held on by one stud and might fall off if you hit them. But they're pretty easy to put back on, no problem at all. So before I go any further, I do want to emphasize that the final product of this set is pretty good, and I am happy to have it. But there are some small problems and some slightly bigger issues that I do want to talk about. One of these smaller issues, and I mean really small issues, is these top guns are only connected by a turntable, and so they do move around quite freely when you're moving the set. Again, it's a really small issue, but I did want to mention it at least. Another small issue is that when you're looking at it from the side, you can see underneath the side paneling some extra pieces sticking out. That's both where you connect the side paneling in the front and where those slopes from earlier are, but I just think there could have been a better job at hiding them. One thing that I personally don't like, but I can't really say is a negative about this set, is that this top gun is taken directly from the ATTE set, and that means the flick fire missiles were included as well. I chose not to include them here, but if you build this set and want to play with it, just know it does come with those features. Oh, and before I forget and move on to the more serious stuff, here is the UT-AT next to my custom Bakara, and here is the UT-AT next to my custom Commander Bakara and all my Galactic Marines. And that's 100% why I got this set. Okay, but let's talk about some actual issues with this set. To be clear, I don't know if what I'm about to talk about is because of BrickWizard59 or because of AV Figures. All I know is one of the two really should have fixed these issues, because if you pay the $13.99 for these instructions, you do not receive a ready-to-go set. And I'm not talking about how you don't get any pieces, that's expected. I'm talking about how you have to fix the file they send you before you can actually get the pieces. And if you don't do that and just follow the instructions they give, you'll find yourself unable to buy a number of them without really knowing why. Now, I went into much more detail about this in my AV Figures review, but this is a really simple mistake that should have been caught before going up for sale. Because really quickly, these are all the pieces that are incorrect. All of these pieces need to be changed to the proper type so that you can actually buy them. The second big problem though is that the instructions are actually really bad. Again, I have over 100 custom sets. I have built sets using LDD, Studio, I've bought from Brick, Jorstad, Rich Boy J, I've bought sets off of Rebrickable. I've seen a lot of custom instructions, and this is some of the worst I've seen. There are large portions in which the instructions are fine, but then you also immediately have a top-down view for a good while, and well, there's a reason that LEGO doesn't do that anymore. It's surprisingly not that easy to follow, and I found myself having to double-check things more than I'm used to. They also didn't include some things that are honestly basics when it comes to instructions. For instance, anytime you have to rotate the set, the flip symbol should be there to let you know. It's honestly not even a hard thing to include, it takes about 2 seconds to do. And the last problem with the instructions comes back to those 2 slope pieces that I showed you earlier. Because here is the studio file for that, and this is what you get. This is what is included in the parts list. These are 2 completely normal, non-printed slopes. But in the instructions, this is what they show. And that is different whether you open the studio file itself to check out the set or you follow AV Figures instructions. Either way, you won't know about this until you're building the set. And the worst part about that is this piece does exist in Studio. It literally took me all of 10 seconds to find as I just typed in slope 2x2 with radar. And what really confuses me is why those pieces are included when they need to be in order to exist in the instructions. And that is rather annoying to find out just how much you have to actually fix if you want the proper version of this set. Now, one last problem I did have isn't really to do with this set, but is related to it, because having discovered these issues, I wanted to leave a review on AV Figures' website. But when I went to do so, this is what happened. It literally changed and didn't let me write a review. I don't know how 2 people were supposedly able to before, but I can't. All of that said, once you get past fixing the pieces that you do need to change if you want to build this set, and once you manage to get through the honestly terrible instructions, you do have a really nice set. This thing looks really cool, and it makes a great display piece for my Galactic Marines. So while I do want to recommend this set, the issues present within it and the problems I have with AV Figures really make me hesitant to do that. Again, if you watched my video on AV figures, I go way more in detail there, but I will say that now 2 weeks later, I still haven't heard from them. However, I'm not just gonna sit here and complain about this set to you. So ever since I finished building this, I set out to design a better version. While at first I only wanted to redo the instructions, it's kind of turned into being a minifig scale UT-AT. And so once this is done, I do plan on building it, showcasing it, and putting out instructions for it as well. But that's gonna be all for today. Next week I have what's probably the most iconic prequel ship ever, and I'm actually really looking forward to that one. If you like this video or you like the UT-AT, go ahead and hit the like button down below. Let me know what you think next week's ship is gonna be. I'm pretty sure most of you can figure it out. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. I do a bunch of custom LEGO sets every single week. And ring that bell so you know every time that I upload. Seriously guys, thank you so much for watching and for being part of my growing community. I cannot believe how many subscribers I have. So for the third time, thank you all, and I will see you next time.